While checking the All-22 to kind of get a feel for how the Kansas City Chiefs might attack this Philadelphia Eagles offense, I walked away surprised at the way the Chiefs coaching staff was utilizing the uniqueness of their roster. I think oftentimes when we hear fans discuss, the concept of roster construction and, who's got the better players, I think people forget that individuals are individuals and you can have great individual players, but the best team will win a football game. So sometimes the talent just overwhelms and the individual talent forming a team is just so convincingly, above everybody else. It's just a walkthrough. But other times you have to look at the fact that teams are built around schemes and how you can match up and beat a team within the inner workings of a football game. It matters, and it's often lost in these discussions. So I wanted to take a look by using the All-22 to see how Andy Reid, Matt Nagy, and a name that some of y'all might not be familiar with here, but Joe Blameyer, who's their passing game coordinator. I wanted to take these three guys together because obviously Matt Nagy handles their running game. The running back coach is a familiar name to us. It's Todd Pinkston, by the way. And Andy Reid, I wanted to see how they were conceptualizing this screen. And what I noticed was pretty unique because they were using a little bit of a throwback offense, in particular down inside of the red zone. They were coming out in Harold Tubby, yeah, that's his name, guys. Harold Tubby Raymond, an old 50s, 60s era coach from the University of Delaware, guys. And they were using essentially the Delaware Wing-T offense. Now, I want to state this by starting off by saying there's a difference between the T formation and the Wing-T alignment. Okay, a Wing-T alignment is basically when you align a wing back outside, 1 yard off and outside of the tight end. Okay, the Eagles do that. A lot of teams around the league do that. But when you're in a traditional T formation, you're going back to like old school football. We're going back to Pop Warner days, Greasy Neal and the Philadelphia Eagles in those 40s era. We're going back to single wing, double wing, and winged formations, right? The traditional T formation here. And the difference here is in the T formation, you have a quarterback and then you have a T, right? You have players forming a T at the head of it, okay? While when you're in something that's traditionally thought of as a wing-T alignment, now you have a player that's not necessarily the T. You got a player that's winged, guys. That player's winged off of the scrimmage, off of your tight end. A yard back from your tight end and then outside of him in terms of the scrimmage. Now, the first thing from your tight end, why you don't see a lot of this inside of football today is, keep in mind, guys, the rules that surround the line of scrimmage and things like that, possession and things like it's a little complex to where if you play around with gadgety type plays, you can get yourself burnt pretty quickly. So this is something that must be practiced. There's a lot of nuance to it. You got to be careful, man. The first thing you got to do as a coaching staff, and I know it sounds crazy because like, man, this is the first thing that we teach kids, whether they're playing Pop Warner ball, middle school ball, or high school ball. We all teach them the same thing, college, whatever. You got to make sure you got 7 men on the line of scrimmage, guys. Simply put, you got to have 7 on the line of scrimmage. So when you start messing around with these unique formations, that's the first thing that kind of has to be realized in terms of like the X's and O's and the schematics. You have to do something as basic as, hey, don't mess this up and get a stupid procedure call. All right? But when I looked at this and I was studying this, I was looking at the way that they were utilizing their personnel between 11-man, 12-man, and then things like, basically pony sets. Multiple running backs on the field at the same time together, right? Then I was looking at them from spread concepts. Things like 0 personnel, 1 personnel, 10 personnel, things like that. When they're trying to spread out, like how often do they do those things versus outside of just 12 personnel, like 13 personnel and 2 personnel. Things like that, guys. Seeing how they use these guys in the particulars of their concepts and their offense. And I was shocked because I was expecting to see a little bit more pony sets, 2-back sets, and they do this. I mean, there's some numbers here to suggest that between 4 and 5% of their snaps come between 20, 21, and 22 personnel. But 5% of your snaps, while that's high for the overall league, it's not high in terms of utilization. 95% of your offense goes somewhere else. But yet I'm looking on the film and I'm seeing things that resemble a variation. It's not a true T formation. It's a variation of it. I'm seeing something that is a variation of a T formation on their 22 tape. I mean, I was like, okay, well, how are they getting to that? So then I started looking at, well, let's take a look at the roster and how are they utilizing the roster. So when they're in 11 personnel, which has been an expansion since they got D-Hop guys, and they've had more bodies out there, Worthy and these guys coming back, they got Hollywood Brown, they got D-Hop, Juju Smith-Schuster, Xavier Worthy, Justin Watson. So they got guys that they can utilize in their body in the framework to get them to 11 personnel. But they only run 11 personnel around 48% of their snaps. 47.8 to be exact on the season is where they are in terms of 11 personnel utilization. That's not high. It's not a high rate at all. So then I was like, okay, well, who are the tight ends and who are the backs? And I say backs because they do have a rostered fullback. So they're tight ends: Kelsey, Noah Gray, Peyton Hendershot. They use 3 tight ends, and you will see them go into multiple tight end sets quite a bit in the game. And we're going to get to that in 1 second. I'm going to give you an example. All right, they're backs. They're running backs. They got a very interesting running back room with Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, Samaje Perine, and then they have this young man named Carson Steele, who is a fullback on their team, a rookie. So they got a couple of guys that are, a rookie who's 22 years old. They got Isaiah Pacheco, who's still a young guy at 25. We're familiar with him from the 22 Super Bowl season. And then they had these 2 guys in Kareem Hunt and Samaje Perine, who are 29, 30-ish. They're veteran guys. But look at the physical size of their running back room, guys. 5'10", 216 for Pacheco. Kareem Hunt is 5'11", 216 himself. Perine's a 5'10", 236-pound back. That's a heavy back, man. He's bigger than their fullback, Carson Steele, who's 6', 228. Right away, you could say is like, okay, they got some elements of bigger backs inside of their offense. That's no doubt about them. Like there's definitely an element clearly to that. But once again, when I'm looking at personnel utilization, we're talking about multiple backs, pony sets, 5% of their snaps at the highest level. Tight ends, though, oh boy, do they like to use tight ends, guys. 33.9% of their snaps on the season are coming out of 12 personnel. Add in another 9.8% from 13 personnel, and then a 0.8, almost 1% utilization for 2 personnel, meaning no running backs on the field. Obviously, 2 tight ends, and then 3 wide receivers, guys. So when you add all those together, you're talking about 44.5% utilization. 47.8, almost 48% in terms of 11 personnel. Then with multiple tight end packages, 44.5%, almost 45%. They will mix it in and out between 11 personnel, 12 personnel, and then pony sets. 21, 22, so forth, guys. So, one play stood out to me on here. And it is going back to an old school Harold Tubby Raymond. We're talking T Formation and Pop Warner. The great Glenn Pop Warner in his formations, single back and things like he brought like that. All those winged formations. I want you to watch this. Look at the way they're lined up, guys. Okay? We're going to talk about pre-snap motion and post-snap motion in another video because you should know that about the Chiefs. They do a lot of it, guys. The Rams are the only other team that we've played on this season where we're going to see where we saw that type of motion happening, guys, to be quite honest, at the frequency level, the amount of it, the total amount of it. Okay? Watch that. Okay, they're going to move. They're going to motion their tight ends. You notice right away they're in 12 personnel. They got 2 tight ends here, right? They're motioning 2 tight ends on both sides of essentially their quarterback, who's Patrick Mahomes, who is also a person who can factor into the run game. It's not what he's known for. He's not a Lamar Jackson. He's not a Josh Allen. He's not a Daniel Jones. He's not a Jalen Hurts. He's not known for being that style of a quarterback where you can run some power and run some things with him. But he certainly has the athletic ability to do it. Pat Mahomes does. And that makes their offense potent when you're playing to what your roster has and you have solid fundamental coaching behind it. All right? We get the motion. Now we see the stack set they have here. This is a variation, right? If Pat is under center, you move your other back who's behind Pat, basically in like almost a pistol. You move him forward. Now you got a T formation. That is an old school T formation if Pat is under center. But it's a variation from the shotgun. And they're going to take 8 people inside the box, and they're going to have 8 guys that can be dedicated and used for blocking. So you got an 8-on-8 blocking assignment in the red zone down there. And they find a way of getting Kareem Hunt into the end zone based upon this particular look. These are the things that are very creative about their offense, right? I started off expecting to see a lot of pony sets and things like that. When I was reviewing their roster, I go check the data, and the data's like, nah, Chief, you're wrong. You're definitely wrong there. So I'm like, okay, let me go back to the 22. Let me go back to the roster. Let me look and pay attention to the ebb and flow of these games a little closer. And what I noticed is like, oh, okay. They have unique ways of using 11 personnel, 12 personnel, and 21 personnel. So they'll use the same play. You'll see this formation used more than once, but they'll vary it by the players in the game, and they'll vary it by the formation. Okay, in terms of the personnel utilization when I say formation. The formation is going to remain the same, but the personnel utilization is going to change in terms of they could be in 11 personnel, could be in 12 personnel, they could be in 21 personnel. So they could be in a pony set, they could be in multiple tight ends, or they could be in a traditional 11 personnel, but playing to condensed sets that allow them to do this type of work, these type of looks, if you will. All right, guys, that's what I got for this particular video. Let me know what you think. The old Delaware Wing-T, a variation of it coming out of Andy Reid. I mean, look, we know this game's going to be a fight. We know that the Chiefs can play some ball. There's no doubt about it. We know this is going to be a fight. This is a fight that I'm looking forward to, guys, because I can't wait to get out there in a couple of weeks and play some football and watch this game. Well, not me personally play, but, watch this game, if you will, guys. All right, y'all. Peace. I'm out of here.